How will Arsenal line up ahead of the 2025-2026 season? Obviously, we've made 6 signings so far. Very, very excited about those ones. Kepa is now an Arsenal player. We have a backup goalkeeper. Zubimendi is in the team now. We've also signed Norgaard from Brentford, signed Madueke from Chelsea, signed Mosquera from Valencia, and obviously the big one, we finally signed a striker. Victor Gyokeres has joined us from Sporting. But with all of these 6 signings and expecting at least one more in the transfer window, probably our busiest ever transfer window. It's been long since we signed up to 7 players. How will our lineup look like? Obviously, there's a few players who've departed who we've been used to seeing in the team. Players like Thomas Partey, players like Jorginho, we've been used to seeing those players in our team. Partey for 5 years, Jorginho over the last 3 years. But now we have a new midfield combination in Zubimendi and Norgaard, a new backup goalkeeper who could give a run for his money in goal. So very excited to see how we're going to line up. And obviously, there's a couple of youngsters emerging. Players like Dauman, will he be getting a chance? Nwaneri has signed a new contract as well. How often will we see him in the lineup next season? I'm excited about all of that for sure. So welcome to Everything Arsenal, and let's get into it. So let's start with the goalkeeper situation. So obviously, Kepa has joined, but you still expect David Raya to be the first choice goalkeeper. No doubt about that one. He was, for me, the best goalkeeper in the league last season alongside Matt Sells from Nottingham Forest. They shared the Golden Glove. Raya made so many saves for us. He saved a couple of very crucial penalties for us in the Champions League and in the league. I think he won Save of the Month twice, and that is how incredible he was. You know, those double saves against Aston Villa, against Man United, and a couple of others throughout the season. He was absolutely class, David Raya. So we expect him to have another big season this time round, and he's going to play a crucial role. Now, last season, he had to play so many games because Neto couldn't play in the Carabao Cup. He was cup-tied. We got eliminated from the FA Cup in the first game, and Raya had to play because we were playing against Man United. And in the Champions League, he only featured once, Neto. But we expect Kepa to get more opportunities. But in the Premier League, we would expect David Raya to be the one who's featuring the most. Now, what about centre-back? What is our centre-back situation? Now, you would expect Gabriel and Saliba to be the main centre-backs for sure. Gabriel and Saliba, both of them had an incredible season last year. Unfortunately, Gabriel got injured at the end of last season, and we didn't see him. We've not seen him since like March of earlier this year. So we finished like the last 3 months without him in the Premier League season. Saliba has always been a constant in our team. Hasn't really picked up too many injuries. Hopefully that continues. But with Gabriel currently still injured, he hasn't really featured in preseason so far. I don't know whether he's going to be fit by the start of the season. I'm hoping so, because we have some tough games starting. But if he's not fit, I mean, you know, we do have some good backup options, including Kiwior. Kiwior can also slot in next to Saliba. This was the partnership last season at the end of the Champions League campaign, playing against Real Madrid, playing against PSG. These were the two who are playing, and Kiwior is very, very good. I'm so happy that he's still at Arsenal. I did not want us to sell him at all, especially with all the injury issues that we currently have. I don't think you can sell Kiwior, and he's one of the best players defensively as a backup. I don't think there's too many other Premier League teams that have this good of a backup. Now, if it isn't Kiwior, we've seen Calafiori playing in that position as well in the first 2 preseason games against AC Milan and also against Newcastle, but unfortunately he also got injured, so we might not see this combination too much next season. Obviously Calafiori has to be protected because of that injury record, and sometimes you expect him to feature at left back as a rotation option for Lewis Kelly. But as of now, Gabriel, we're hoping that he'll be fit, but as of now, if you're starting the Premier League next week, you would expect it to be Kiwior and Saliba at centre back. But it's good to have those options. Remember, we've also signed Mosquera, who can be a backup for Saliba. He can also rotate. He can play next to Saliba. He can play both sides in defense at centre back. So if you have injury issues and fitness issues, Mosquera can slot in that position. So those are the 3 different options we have there with Kiwior, Calafiori, and Gabriel. Now, what about the fullbacks? At the moment, you would expect Lewis Kelly and Timber to be the one featuring most or more in the Premier League and the Champions League. But obviously, at the moment, Timber is currently injured as well. He hasn't really featured in any of the preseason games. One of our top players last season, I felt like we overplayed him way too much, but we didn't really have any options. Tomiyasu was injured. Ben White was injured a lot last season as well. So we were basically forced to play with to use Timber almost every single game. So next season, I'm hoping we can rotate Timber And not just Timber, you can also have Ben White on that right side, who's been very good in preseason so far. It's looking like we're getting the old Ben White that we know about, so that is absolutely fantastic. So, and he's played with the Gyokeres before, so I had some of that he assisted Gyokeres when they played together for Brighton, like the one game that they played together, he assisted Gyokeres. So that is very interesting. Those overlapping runs from White and Saka and Odegaard passing the ball to White and then White crossing the ball to Gyokeres. We saw that happening a lot in the 23-24 season when Havertz got at the end of a few of those crosses and he ended up winning games later on. Now we'll have Gyokeres up front, and Gyokeres is the one who's going to be waiting for those crosses. I cannot wait for that. So defensively, without the injuries, you have the best defense probably in the world, and you have the best options, and you have the more options as well. I mean, if you have the fast team and then you count players like Mosquera, Zinchenko is still here as well. With the injury issues, I'm leaning towards keeping Zinchenko. And then you have players like Ben White, you have players like Timber. Defensively, it's looking good, but let's hope that the injuries are not that serious and the players recover in time. Now, what about the midfield? Now, we spent £55 million on a new midfielder. It's a direct replacement for Thomas Partey. So Zubimendi will play in that midfield. Obviously, expect him to hold the midfield. He won the ball back a lot of times against Newcastle. He's a very good passer of the ball. We've seen him already creating 3 or 4 chances in the 2 games. He's very good in terms of through passes. So if Martinelli is on the left side, the Gyokeres is playing in the middle, and Zubimendi can pick up that through pass. Very, very good option to have in that midfield. Now, the only question is, will he be able to handle the physicality right away from the first game? If he's up against a Caicedo just tackling and bullying and players like Bruno Guimaraes, I think he will be able to handle it. But if we have a game like that, or if Zubimendi needs some rest, then that's where Christian Norgaard comes in as well. Christian Norgaard can also play in that position. He's used to the Premier League. He's been here since 2021. Very experienced player, over 30 years of age. And him and Zubimendi will be complementing each other very well. One of them will be starting I expect Juventus to be starting most of the games, but Norgaard in the games that is needed is going to be playing, sometimes maybe coming on for Zubimendi, and depending on how the game is going, if you just need some a bit more physicality and a bit more defensive attributes in that midfield, and Zubimendi has done his job of controlling and everything, then we can bring in Zubimendi, or we can bring in Norgaard for Zubimendi. Now, those are not the only 2 options that we have there. We can have Merino there if we want. We could use players like Lewis Kelly there, but I doubt that will be the options. The third option in that midfield will probably be Declan Rice, who can also fit there. Now, for this one, I'd expect this to be the case if we are trying to go full-on attack in the front 5. Now, whether that is from the beginning of the game, or maybe we are trailing in a game and you feel like we don't need Norgaard or Zubimendi in that midfield, and you just push Rice to the midfield and just go for 5 attackers in the game. That could be the scenario we see. Now, it doesn't have to be Rice. It can also be Zubimendi there. I mean, it would be Rice most of the time because, as playing as a lone midfielder, he would be able to handle that. And obviously going forward is also very, very good. So you basically have 6 attackers in that midfield, and Rice is also like the defensive setup in that midfield as well. I think that is what we will see in some situations next season. Or sometimes just as simple as resting Zubimendi, resting Norgaard, you have Rice in that position. That could be the case. Now, if you have Rice there, you could let's say you sign Eze, you could have Eze and Odegaard in front of him. That is what I mean by a front 5, and then the other front 3 players. That allows Rice to just operate in that midfield by himself. Sometimes it can be Norgaard, sometimes it can be Zubimendi, no problem, depending on how which game you're playing and which team you're playing. And you don't want to get exposed too much, then that can be an option. Now, this would be very, very vital for games like those games you're drawing 0-0 against Everton at home and struggling to score goals against West Ham at home. I think we've gone 2 seasons now without scoring a goal at home against West Ham, struggling against teams like Fulham. Teams like Burnley, Sunderland are going to do the same thing against us next season. They're going to come and park the bus at the Emirates Stadium. We don't want to just have 3 or 4 attackers in the team, or sometimes even 3 defensive midfielders playing in all 3 midfield spots. That is not what we want. We want to have enough attackers, and this will allow you to do that. Now, again, it doesn't have to be exactly that. It can be Trossard in the Eze spot, and then you still have Martinelli on the left side. It can be Nwaneri in the Eze spot, and Odegaard on that side as well. It can be Zubimendi next to Odegaard, and Eze could be be any other way, as long as you have 3 or 5 attackers, so 2 number 10s plus the 3 forward players. But the main midfield we expect to see is this: Zubimendi, Declan Rice, and Odegaard. That is the main one that we expect to see next season for sure. In most of the games, Zubimendi is going to be controlling the midfield. Rice just gives us so much effort, so much balance in terms of attack and defense and the set pieces on that left side. He scored a lot of goals last season, got a lot of assists, and obviously is one of our best interceptors of the ball and tackles in that midfield. Rice basically gets you those tackles up front. He puts you on the attack quicker because he's a very good tackler and a very good interceptor of the ball. If he intercepts the ball on the other side of the pitch, it puts you on the attack right away. And this time we'll have players like Gyokeres to take advantage of that. That is super exciting. So that is the midfield you expect to see most of the times. Now, what about the front three? Obviously, Saka is going to be on the right side most of the times. He does have a backup in Noni Madueke now. We might see Martinelli, backing him up sometimes if he does stay in the team. But Saka will be playing there most of the times, as we've already seen in preseason. I doubt next season is going to be playing like 90 minutes after his injury this past season. I'm sure he will be rotated. We'll be more cautious with him. That's why we probably brought Madueke as well, just to be, have a similar kind of player who can, take on players on that left side and try and dribble past players and cut on his left foot. That is what we are looking for. So let's see how it's going to work out. But Saka, again, with Gyokeres up front, I think Saka and Odegaard would really enjoy themselves in terms of their assists and, someone to pass the ball to. And with Ben White has a very good relationship with Odegaard and Saka on that right side. Definitely helps. Timber as well. I don't mind Timber next to Saka as well. He'll do the job too whenever he plays, but just gives Saka, it gives Saka more options, basically. Having Gyokeres there and having players like Ben White overlapping, it really does give him more options. And then now, even if he's marked by 3 players, that means there's someone by himself. They can't leave Odegaard by himself because he can pick up that pass to Gyokeres. So that is why it's very exciting. Now, speaking of Gyokeres, of course, he's going to be our main striker, no doubt about that one. He's a killer, he's a finisher up front. Almost 100 goals in the last 2 years. I don't think we've had anything like that. When was the last time an Arsenal player scored a hat-trick? In Ketia 2 seasons ago. When was the last time an Arsenal player scored 4 goals in a game? It's been long. This is a player who's done that a few times recently. Again, he doesn't have to score 5 goals, 4 goals in a game in the Premier League, but those chances that we create, if Merino gets 2 or 3 chances in a game and Havertz gets 2 or 3 chances in a game and Martinelli and Trossard, all of them get all of those chances in a game, some of those chances are going to drop to Gyokeres as well. And Gyokeres is a guy who turns chances into goals. Gyokeres turns chances into goals, and is going to absolutely be lethal in terms of that. I cannot wait to see him get started, man. It makes all of these players better. It's going to create space for someone like a Declan Rice. Like if we have this, and players are, trying to cover Saka and trying to mark Gyokeres. If Ben White or Timber overlaps on that right side and then they put in a cross, all of a sudden Declan Rice is by himself in the edge of the box and he has a chance to shoot the ball. All of a sudden, whoever is playing on the left side, they're free, and Gyokeres has created space for them because they're too worried about marking Gyokeres. It's just exciting. And, whenever someone has a shot or they get the Rice, Gyokeres is there to pounce. Saka is there to pounce. It's just super exciting to see. Now, the left side is up for grabs. That's why I've left it for last. It's literally up for grabs. Anyone can play there at the moment. It can be Martinelli there to start against Man United. His form hasn't been great since last season, probably even since the previous season. It can be Trossard, who I think if you're starting the Premier League tomorrow, Trossard would be the one to start. It can also be Noni Madueke, depending on what kind of game we have, I guess. Again, maybe having Gyokeres there makes Martinelli a better player. Maybe he racks up the assists with Gyokeres there with those crosses that he puts in. Maybe that is the case, but what everyone is saying right now after signing Gyokeres is the left side need to improve on the left side. Now, I'm very happy with Martinelli and Trossard staying. I wanted us to sign a new left winger, but I was happy with Martinelli and Trossard staying as backup options. Now, do I think we're going to sign a left winger? Doesn't look likely, to be honest. I think because now we have like 4 options who can play there in Martinelli, Trossard. Madueke can also play there. And if we sign Eze can also play there, I think those are the 4 players we're going to be using there. Now, that position is up for grabs. When Madueke makes his debut and plays well, then it's going to be such a W for us, such a win for us, such a good thing for us if Madueke slots into the team and starts playing right away well, and it can be an option to back up Saka, and it can be an option on the left side. It will just really help us because he has the pace, he has the skill, he can transition well, something that we don't have. So if you have Eze and Madueke on the same pitch to transition, that is better than what we've had. So let's hope the Madueke signing works. And with Eze signed as well, he can also play on that left wing, depending on the game, depending on who needs to be rested, depending on what is coming up next after that week. Those are all options that we can use. Now, Havertz. We've not talked about Havertz yet in this lineup. Obviously, we know Havertz can easily slot into that position where Rice is, and Rice in the Zubimendi role. Where I put this one, so where I put Rice as an Odegaard like that, it could easily be Havertz in the as a role, especially if Arteta wants him to start. It could easily be that. Now, I've seen people saying, having Havertz in the team is a nightmare. It's been a nightmare over the last 2 years. I don't personally agree with that because he has 40 plus goal contributions during that time. Plus, he had an injury for the last 3 months of the season. He still scores goals, but we can't depend on him to score the goals for you. But if he's in and around the team, he will score goals. Even if Gyokeres is the main man and Havertz is coming on, he'll probably still have 10 plus goals. In all competitions, maybe more than that. He'll still get a few assists, as we saw for Marina and the own goal against who was it, Newcastle, because he'll drift to the left side, he'll come back to the midfield and win the ball back and, pass the ball to Saka like he did against Tottenham in the North London derby 2 seasons ago. He has that long pass in him as well that he can do. So that could be an option. But I think we're also going to see this a few times next season. We could see Havertz and Gyokeres up front together with Saka on the right, Trossard or someone else on the left. And then that will need Rice to play in that midfield alone, but whoever is playing on the left back position, probably Lewis Kelly, they're going to be needed to come back to come in the midfield. So as you can see, the left side is a bit open. So that's why, you have to look at the whole team. Maybe it could be Martinelli playing in the Trossard role because he has more pace to come back and cover. It could be, Calafiori just playing in the Lewis Kelly role because he can play both well. Just depends, obviously. If you make a couple of changes in the team, maybe you'll need to change one more other position just to cover that position. But we could see this in a few games, and we could also see it off the bench. Maybe Havertz comes off the bench if you're like trailing or you're drawing and you just need 2 big men in the box. You can put in crosses. All of a sudden, it's a better option. Like in the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if you have both Havertz and Gyokeres in the box and Rice as well getting into the box, you can put in those crosses. You have 2-3 players who can get at the end of it, because even in preseason so far, there's so many times you're crossing the ball and there's no one in the box. So in the last 15 minutes, if you have a couple of options, Merino can also be an option in that Havertz position there. Merino can also be there to basically play like a front 2. It could be an option. So it's great to have different options. That is what matters. It's great to have different options. That is what I'm looking at. Have different options in the team. Now, imagine you have this and you still have Eze maybe to come on. You still have Martinelli to come on. You still have Nwaneri as an option to come on in the Odegaard role, in the last 30 minutes or something. You could have Calafiori for Lewis Kelly. It doesn't have to be Timber. It can be Ben White. It doesn't have to be Rice. It can be Zubimendi. It doesn't have to be Havertz. It can be Merino. It doesn't have to be Trossard. It can be Eze on that left side. Like, that is great to have. Now, if you look at that and you have a bench of those players I just mentioned to come on now, let's say you have a Carabao Cup game, an FA Cup game, or a game where you need to rest all your top guys. The second team doesn't look too bad as well. Look at that. Kepa in goal, a back 4 of Calafiori, Kivia, Mosquera, and Ben White. That is great as well. That can have Timber or Ben White to be in the first team for a few games. That could have Lewis Kelly there instead. Norgaard, Merino, and Nwaneri in midfield. That could be Zubimendi in a Carabao Cup game when Norgaard has started the Premier League game. And then up front, you have Martinelli, Havertz, and Madueke. That is really good. And I've not mentioned Max Dauman, who can also feature in that. I haven't mentioned Alexander Zinchenko can also feature in that, and youngsters like Josh Nichols can all feature in that. So it's great to have a lot of different options. So super, super excited to see. And our transfer business is not yet done. There could be a few changes from that team. We don't know whether Trossard or Martinelli are going to both stay. If one of them is going to leave, we're waiting to see what happens. So still a very exciting team that we can line up with. Let me know which one you'd like to see more. Is there any other thing that I've left out that you'd like to see formation-wise? There's a couple of other formations we could use. We don't have to use a back 4, especially if you're like last 20 minutes of the game away to Liverpool and you're leading 2-0. I'd not be surprised if Mosquera came in for Odegaard, and then all of a sudden we have Lewis Kelly on the left, Ben White on the right, or Timber, and then you have Gabriel, Saliba, and also Mosquera in the back three, with maybe Norgaard and Rice both holding in midfield. And then you just have a front three of Martinelli and someone else, Saka, whatever. That could be an option as well. You don't have to use that formation exactly, but different options. That is what we need. We don't want to be predictable. Everyone knew what lineup we'd go for. And then if you looked at our bench, you didn't have anyone to bring on. If you have this, if Martinelli is tired, you take him off, you bring on Trossard. If Odegaard is tired, you take him off, you bring on Eze. If Saka is tired, you take him off. There's other options like Nwaneri off the bench. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this team. I cannot wait for us to get started. Tough start to the season. The first 5 games they're playing against Man United, Liverpool, Man City, Nottingham. But if we have a clean start to the season, super exciting. So let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next one.